Well, we had the blue sky yesterday. Today we are cloudy, and it said might be rain, but no, not raining now. But it's warm. It's beautiful.
Oh.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was a little delayed. I was adding a couple poll questions. I'm doing a webinar for Big Brothers, Big Sisters for the Search Institute in Minneapolis. They do a lot of professional development stuff. They've been doing more on family engagement. So I'm, not surprisingly, I'm doing their thing on using technology to engage families. So I was sort of thinking through it, but then I started thinking of you, and then I thought, well, I'm actually kind of thinking about doing, would it be really horrible on the parenting educators and the ECFE professionals if I did another survey in May about sort of like, now that the year is done? Like
all the surveys. I'm all for collecting people's stories for how the year went. I don't think it's bad at all. I think people want to talk about their experiences. Do it without hesitation. That's my take.
Okay. Because I'm finding actually interest out there, especially when it comes to, I mean, it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of conversation about teachers, right, using technology and doing Zoom and kids learning through Zoom and everything. So the whole world's interest is in kids and learning, which is great. And then they sort of look at families. And so by my talking about technology, I'm actually able to sell parenting education because they're already interested in like COVID and kids being on screens and kids learning through screens and that sort of thing. And so I've been sort of chirping up going, well, yes, educators do need a lot of support, but you know who else needs support? Those professionals that are working with their families. And the really cool thing is that people who like know depth of either, I wouldn't say necessarily ed tech, but the people that are like, there's a researcher out of England, Sonia Livingstone, you may see some of her stuff. And so she has a blog with guest writers and stuff, and they had a thing about teachers using technology or the sort of the challenges that they were facing with COVID and that kind of thing. And so I responded to a tweet about that blog, and then wrote to her and just said, if you'd like a guest blog post on family educators, who are like on the front lines with family members, like that's the work that I do around technology. Anyway, so there was interest, and then in the family engagement world, they were really interested. And so the nice thing with people sort of having an ear to the ground about screens and about technology and using technology in education is that somehow it's making them far more receptive to this idea that those families of the kids that they are so concerned about, actually there are professionals that are working with them and their technology support need to be addressed. So anyway, so just saying, but anyway, so because while I was thinking about that, I was thinking about doing a follow-up survey in the spring if it wasn't too onerous on professionals. So with that, good morning, everyone, or good after 12:05. So I have two quick little polls. These are very easy, but you'll be my guinea pigs on this. I was waiting for a few more people, not that it matters, but okay, so here are the polls. And let me launch them. There's part one and part two, and read closely because the questions are different. Okay, here we go. Oh, we're so close. Oh, I guess I'm 10, am I? I'm number 10. Okay, good. Well, that's it then. And the poll. Interesting. Let me see. This is why I asked the 2 questions. Okay, let me show the results. So why do you think I asked those 2 questions? 2 different questions. So one is about comfort and skill, and then the other one is interest in using.
Just because we've been thrown into it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a part of our skill set from now on.
Yeah, that you're going to want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I know how to use it and I know it's there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to continue, because there are some pieces that I'll sure take, but we need to take it again now that Becca and Christy are here.
Well, they can give us their like, we're all friends here. They can tell us their answers. This isn't super private. You're like my guinea pig group here. So Becca and Christy, I was just sort of bullying my way into the beginning of our meeting, talking about doing a potential follow-up survey with the educators in the spring. Because I did it last spring, and that was really good. And actually, what I loved most about doing that last spring was the emotion that came to the top about grieving the loss. And this is like the big thing that I share with the world, so that they get beyond, like they get the importance of family educators, is that like the grieving the loss of relationships with families, and also the chaotic time that was felt, because there was, and this again is not dumping on administrators, right? But just the kind of the chaotic situation that people were in, because there wasn't clear direction on anything, right? So there was like no time that was like, figure this out. And we really can't give you a clear plan because we don't know ourselves, right? Anyway, and I got all of that from last spring, so it was great. So anyway, so I was just thinking of doing a follow-up survey after the year is over, and now with like light at the end of the tunnel and all of that, just to kind of see where people were at. And our wonderful group had said that they felt that it would be okay. So if anybody complains, you'll have to, anyway. So then I had these 2 little poll questions, and you can see what they are, right? So my comfort and skill. So most of you said has improved. And then the second question was your interest in continuing to use technology in your teaching, right? And also improved, but not as strongly. And so the reason I asked both of those questions is because, I think that there's going to be an assumption that because professionals have relied on Zoom and relied on technology, is that, either A, you don't need more support in the area, or B, you're just going to continue using it in practice, or, without really inquiring how much you want to. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you.
I have to say, we just had a conversation about this week on my team.
Oh.
My administrator was on the call as well. And some of it, another point to consider is that administration may not support the use of it continued, because teachers were asking, well, can we still do a Google Meet if a family has for a home visit, if there's a sick family member in the home and we can't go in,
Mm-hmm.
Then there were issues of like, well, we don't know if the district was even going to allow that. So just one example of that, some uses of technology may not be supported. And Susan ran away.
No, I had to get my notebook. See, I've got a whole notebook just for like,
Okay.
Yeah. Because we always have such great, but Carrie, as you're talking, do you mind if we take like just 3 minutes on this? Would you guys tell me what questions? So now it's a year later, it's the end of the school year, right? Because I think that's a really salient question, Carrie, because if it's been working, why not continue it, right? And so anyway, would you mind if you just like threw at me the types of questions if you got this survey for me in the spring? Oh, Sarah?
Sorry, I can wait for you to finish.
Okay, that was it. Do you mind if we take just like 2 or 3 minutes for you to, or you can put them in, never mind. Just put them in chat, because I don't want to take your time.
Well, can I just say that I answered the survey from the perspective of not ECFE, but just adult ed for parents and caregivers.
Mhm.
And I've been thinking about this, and I think that my perfect adult only class next year might be a hybrid model where we meet in person first and at the end, maybe in the middle, depending on how many weeks or whatever the class meets. But the Zoom, the convenience of Zoom for adults who are parents is tremendous.
Mhm.
And the idea of not gathering every week doesn't, for just adult only classes, I think takes on a barrier rather than, right? I mean, so but I wouldn't want to, I really don't want to just only do online anymore if I don't have to, because like being with people really is, we don't have, I don't have to tell you, it's great. So I'm thinking about, I'm noodling like a hybrid model,
Okay.
but I don't rely on a school right now to
Mhm.
support me in that vision. So I don't know how it would feel if I re-entered a school system.
So
I don't know.
should I include a question on like, what would be your desired, Becca's going, yes. Okay.
And what would be your desired? And then say, in what ways might you continue using technology? Because what Sarah just said right now, I'm just like, that's not a bad idea. Like, that's what's so beautiful about this collaboration is that there are some things that we've never thought about.
Mhm.
And you know, this winter, it just occurred to me, I haven't done it at all I did it in the fall, but not this spring or this winter session. But I did a preschool parent question answer night on Zoom. And, you know, one night I got 4 parents. The next night I got 0 parents. They didn't turn on their cameras, which was fine, but they came. But in the middle of that, they were putting kids to bed. And so kind of what you said there, for a parent only class, they got their questions answered. They got some support, but they didn't have to leave their home.
Mhm.
And so that is valuable. And maybe we do that again. Maybe
Mhm.
I have some parents who are just like, no, I am so sick of Zoom, nothing virtual. You offer something for them, and then you offer something for the families who honestly getting out the door at 6:30 on a Thursday night is just, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
That's just not going to work for my family and my little people. So, but so sorry, long answer. Have a space, Susan, where people can share how they're going to use the technology in the future, because
Okay.
that's just tons of brainstorming for us. And like Carrie said, if you have an administrator who's not super supportive of continuing this technology into the future, you can be like, but look, this can work, you know? So.
Mhm.
And I just want to clarify, since this is recorded, that my administrator was supportive.
Okay.
Question of whether or not the district would have any rules around that. About
Right.
the way that was used. Yeah.
Right.
And Susan, I don't know if you remember from being my professor, my project of my make-believe curriculum and whatnot, that I felt so passionately about and love so much, which Sarah Hardy was almost exactly what you were describing. It was a hybrid model where we would meet once a month in person and with parents of elementary age kids, and possibly have paras who could provide homework help and some activities for kids, so that the goal was nobody should have to worry about a babysitter ever. So but the goal was very much not programming for kids. It was pretty much pure parent ed. And the 3 other weeks of the month were meeting virtually and having message boards and stuff for communicating ideas and thoughts, and having materials for parents to look at on their own time. It's so what I want to do.
Gosh, Becca, you know, it's almost like a new vision for a new vision for a different delivery model for ECFE. And again,
you still need a place to have that meeting, but this was obviously before COVID when I came up with this, but I was thinking, what are the biggest barriers for parents of elementary school age kids toward having something that is functional for them? And one of the biggest barriers is schedules. And people, while there are a much higher percentage of stay-at-home parents in the preschool years, so many like have two parents both working full time once the kids are in elementary school. And so evening felt like, well, that's going to have to be where you meet people. But then it was like, but then they've got sports and activities and here and there, and giving up an evening when life already feels so busy was another barrier. And so that's where my idea for doing something virtually 3/4 of the time kind of came, before we were forced suddenly into trying it out in a way with because of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the original idea with Parentopia was that connectivity between classes and that opportunity that the internet provides for engagement if you can't be there, right? Snow days and that sort of thing. And it was always interesting to me that a teacher who had a parent in her class who had triplets who then, of course, couldn't attend. The platform ended up functioning in two ways. One is that parent at home could continue to stay engaged and find out kind of what was going on and that sort of thing. But the other thing was that the other parents in the class then used the platform as a sort of a collaboration tool, so they could organize who was going to bring food over and that kind of thing, and it was just like, see, you have to change anything, but you can just see its benefits. So good. Well, just keep it coming, guys. I mean, because this is super helpful for me. I only want to ask questions that are useful to the person answering it. But I also do think about sort of moving forward in policy change and advocating for the field. And this is an opportunity to kind of collect that, so whatever the administrators in school districts or whatever might be oppositional to. What would they be worried about, though? Are they worried about enrollment? Are they worried about privacy? Are they worried about, what would they be worried about to continue doing more
One of our
interface?
early childhood teachers on the early childhood end kind of brought up, I don't know, I can't remember exactly how she put it, and I hate to put words in her mouth, but it sort of leaves them out, the early childhood teacher, because they're not coming in for parent-child classes. And so they were really advocating for the importance of the parent-child piece and the parent-child relationship, and not just starting to focus on parent work. And then you sort of like job assignment wise and hours wise, then you're heavy on parent ed and not on early childhood, because they're kind of left out of that parent ed online piece. So I know that was one of them too. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up quick, maybe Susan, for your notes, is it's not really a question or a comment, but just an idea about how can this relate to equity and reaching families who haven't been reached or whose English is not their first language.
Yep.
And that's something in our district that I think I'm being given hours for in the fall, and I'm super overwhelmed by that, to try to have something live by second semester that could be translated into different languages, almost like an on-demand, or I don't even know what, but something to address that, where someone could either find out about ECFE or learn about some of the things we teach in parenting classes if they're not coming and they're not speaking English, or that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely would do like follow-up. I mean, because the three key things that we learned from last year was about equity and access, and the concern about not being able to reach all families, and so that was key. The loss of relationships, or the way to maintain relationships, that was the second big thing. And then the third one was just navigating new technologies to basically continue doing what you're doing as teachers, right? And this is the early childhood teachers too, because it was broad. I think that idea of how am I possibly going to continue to teach young children, right? And then the parent-child piece, is going to be hard. So yeah, so I mean, I would definitely want to do a follow-up on some of those issues. So good. Thank you.
So, Susan, one of my a student, I just got the assessment evaluation, right? So one said she, because the online version, she's able to attend the class and it's so helpful. And she also mentioned she feel like for online classes, the smaller size of the class is helpful. She feels like, a bigger size class is better for like in-person class, so she feels smaller size allows us to talk, like think deeper and communicate, interact more. If we have a lot of people in the virtual set, that will be very difficult. She said, she mentioned that.
Yep, thanks. Yep, great. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I don't mean to monopolize too much of our time. Let me turn it back over to you. How are you doing? How can the group be here for you this week? Love to see you all back. Hi, Karen. Do you have new glasses? Yeah, you? They work.
No, they're just one of those screen glasses that my eyes from getting so fatigued. So that's all. But yeah, good to see you. I had a grandbaby here last week, so I had to focus on that. That was important. So I missed you, but good to see you.
To Carrie's point, I think reaching hard to reach. Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So without getting into the nitty gritty, do you mind if we talk about that? Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I think it's a fabulous topic. I guess that's like almost like a two-part question. It's like the objective and the method. And so I always falter on the method, right? Because we have great ideas and there's good, there's always the data and that kind of thing. But collectively, how does that happen?
Kind of to add to that discussion, and one of the things that we've found is that our cultural liaisons are busier because they are trying to do technology with families. They're maybe more involved with school age or like supporting families to connect. And so they've been less available. And I just wondered if that was also a piece in that whole thing of when we're addressing ELL families and the challenge of, are we helping them support their children in academics, or are we helping them? I feel like we've had a shift, at least in our district, where I had a little more access to the liaisons and their time is taken differently. So I don't know if that's been anyone else's experience.
I have seen that also a few years ago. And I know that the district that I was in at that time really worked on focusing on technology and families. And so they took some of that off of the cultural liaisons or the CFAs or whatever you call them. But it was a push it was a collaboration with tech and reaching out into the community that helped make a difference at that time.
I often wonder about messaging that perhaps could be in collaboration with MDE or things like, sometimes on NPR, I will actually hear an advertisement for childcare aware or parent aware, and they do a good job of making people aware of these resources. I'm not sure the cost or what it would take to advertise on, let's say, or to do these sorts of announcements. I would have to assume without knowing that those advertisements are going to lots of different broadcasts. So are there stations that our Latinx communities are tuning into, or, I mean, right, there's lots of different places that messages, whether it's on billboards or in certain places in the community, I have felt a huge absence of just the marketing around ECFE after, what was the organization? Does anyone remember ECHO? It was the, I don't know what it stands for. And in fact, I looked for it online not that long ago and couldn't even find it. But ECHO was like marketing for ECFE. And I think it was across the state. I don't know if it was Twin Cities or I'm not sure, but
during the 40th birthday thing, like 5 years ago, if I remember.
well, it was for many, 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 many years. And
I guess that's just when
it went out of existence probably after the birthday party. I think it was all done. And I don't know if they had a funding stream that went away, or how that, I'd like to know more about the history of that. Because I think 100% of us across the state would benefit from a larger message, and that message isn't being told. And we've had such limited support as it's dwindled at the MDE. I'm just talking about by way of staffing numbers and all of that. That one person just can't do it all is what I mean. So I don't know. I think about that a lot, and I'm not sure where any one of us would jump in, but I see it as a collective issue.
I totally agree with you, Nikki. And I even just went to ecfe.info because that came out around the time of the 40th birthday party. That site doesn't go anywhere anymore. Why? Why can't we have a unified ECFE, www.ecfe.org? I mean, what would it take to have a unified message so that anybody anywhere can go and find out where their program is? But I agree, we need like an umbrella message so that everyone knows what we are. It's a PR thing. But yeah, I'm so with you on that. And we're 45 years old, for crying out loud. It's not like we're some new up and coming nonprofit. Like, yeah. ECFE. Oh yes, Susan. How about that?
Wow.
Do it.
Wow. But maybe this is Manafi's work. I don't know.
I think that's been like my biggest surprise. Again, having worked in ECFE in the early 90s, been away for 20 some years, and then coming back and like finding we are still as invisible as we were 25 years ago. And I was frustrated then, and now I'm just like, how can this be? And we still, I mean, we just still have so many families that are like surprised to find out we exist. And I'm like, how you were, and they were born and raised, they've been in Minnesota their whole lives.
One of my paras has a first grader who's 7, and she just found out about ECFE last year, and she loved it so much that she's working for it, right? But she was just like, how did I miss out on this? Like, she needed it so bad as a parent. And she's an immigrant, and she was on her own trying to figure out parenting with no community. And she's just like, my heart breaks for what I missed, like seeing it, getting to be part of it now with her kid who's now in elementary school. And it's just like, I'll never forget doing fundraisers and stuff at Barnes and Noble for ECFE on the Parent Advisory Council, and having people come up and being like, what is this? Like, completely clueless. And then you start to explain it, and they'd be like, why do 3-year-olds need education? I think you're pushing education too soon. Like, there was not only ignorance about it, but like pushback. And it's like, oh man, we really need this like elevator speech or whatever. It's just universal that we all know and talks to the heart of why this is important and what's so great about it. But we need a public campaign. Like,
Yep.
you see
can't-
like for tourism and whatever, for different states talking about what's great about their state, Minnesota has this gem, this thing that's only here. And nobody knows about it. Like we don't shine it and broadcast it and say, hey, look at what Minnesota has. And I think it's to everybody's detriment that we don't just pour a little bit of money up front into PR.
I was just
Can't
talking
leave out
with,
the community ed.
yeah,
Oh,
I was
sorry.
talking with our coordinator today because she's actually going to meet with a branding and marketing consultant next week. But it's like, I think that that's one of the whole missing links is like, we're trained educators. We aren't trained in marketing and branding, but the program needs it. And it's like, if there could be, like Ellen said, if there could be somebody somewhere who was an expert in that, so we could actually get that visibility that the program deserves. But it takes an expertise that none of us really have.
And
Can I
something
jump in?
wide so that we're not all having to like bend different. But if we have this, and again, whether it comes from Menafee or MD or what it is, so that it's a statewide like brand image, whatever, so that no matter where you go, like, oh, that's my ECFE. And to someone put in the chat about I think it was Carly, really important message of like, this is for everybody. Everybody gets something of value out of this. This is not for just like those kind of parents or those kind of parents.
I might jump in because I remember the history of ECHO, and I'm on the board of Menafee right now, which is also broke, by the way. That's the reality. Like if you want Menafee to do these things, join the organization, pay your membership, get others to join too. And then what other state-run program has to have a professional organization taking over the structures? Like that, in my opinion, that shouldn't be the role of Menafee. But that's the only reason ECFE still exists, is because Lois was determined not to let ECFE go and started a professional organization because the State Department of Ed cut all leadership for ECFE. I don't remember if it was like 3 or 4, I don't know, something like that. And ECHO was a subscription that you paid to Menafee to get the marketing materials. So if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Like, so you could pay a subscription in addition to your membership and get access to all of those branded marketing materials. And they were good. Like they were really good stuff. But, we don't have, not since Betty and Lois were let go at the Department of Ed, we have not had a full-time person overseeing ECFE. The only reason we're still here is because of you people. Like that's the only reason we're still here, is because all of you put your heart and soul into it and you make sure that it keeps going. And it really is a larger problem. And I know there are people on the legislative committee. There's an advocacy group at Menafee that is stronger than it has been in a very long time. And they're doing some things to really encourage that there be a full-time person at the Department of Ed. But that's all I know.
Can anyone share, just to update, like what happened? Like I didn't know. I thought that Betty and Lois retired. Like what happened with, that's so sad.
The Palenti and what's the wrestler's name? Those two administrations, Ventura, completely gutted the leadership.
That's shocking.
I was typing this in the chat, but it's way too long. So I was just on the early learning office hours this morning. I don't know if any of you joined that, but the topic was like about what young children have missed during the pandemic and all the concerns about kindergarten enrollment, and like if parents want to still do kindergarten, even if their child didn't go last year, but now they're eligible for first grade, and then the holding back and the preschool and all that. But anyway, again, and Mike Brown actually was a big piece of that presentation and the whole meeting. And he was the only one who brought up ECFE, and it was hardly a mention. So I was shocked and disappointed by that. And they asked in the chat, like, for suggestions for the next one. And so a lot of us who I know who were on the call were like, everybody put something in about ECFE and what the role is of ECFE and supporting parents and all of that. And a lot of it was about summer programming and where funding would come from and things like that. And why is ECFE not a part of that conversation? So yeah, so it's kind of everywhere, frustrating everywhere.
If you go to the MDE website, ECFE is not easy to find. Like if you're, because a lot of times if I'm going to look for the Excel spreadsheet that has like coordinators or programs, or it's just like, oh, is so-and-so still the coordinator in that program? Let me look it up, right? Just, it's, I do have better luck to go to the school district, of course, and then, you know, sort of search from there. But it is sad if you go to MDE, like it's almost like they're not exactly sure where to put it. But anyway, but yeah. So I have I was just on GoDaddy, so I just wanted to see what was available. And my favorite, get this, ECFE.rocks is available as a domain. and it's not expensive. It's like, how much is that? And that is ECFE.rocks is ECFE website. Where is it? Oh, they're cheap. It's like $1 for the first year and $25 for the next year. So, yep. ECFE USA. Anyway.
ECFE, how about ECFE MN? Like Help Me Grow MN?
Oh yeah. ECFE.
Then it's specific to Minnesota.
Yeah. Your domain is available, $9.99 for the first year. And then after that is $21. Not
I
bad.
will pay that myself. If it means we have a well-organized website.
And from doing this, you what they do is then they'll immediately pop up the other domain extensions. So it's just like .org, .com, .net, .us, things like that. Because a lot of times if you have something that is hot and then you don't get into that sort of turf war of people's confusion over what is Chrysler.com versus Chrysler.org. And so that way you can have everything point back to your site. But anyway, yeah, so ECFEMN is a unique thing. I went one year, I got pushback from a blogger in Colorado over the use of the name Parentopia. And I spent the summer coming up with, some of you may have been involved with my surveys. I'm calling it platform 247 or 217. I forget what it was now. Or anyway, so yes, so that's out there, Ellen. Yep, ECFEMN.com, .org, .net, .info, .us, .tech, .co. Yep, there it is. .world.
Now the question is, who do we get to like run it, right? I'm sure we'd all chip in $1 to buy it. Like that's not the issue.
Does MDE ever have task forces, that groups of people that like Mike Brown, can he say, I'm going to start this task force for ECFE? And I remember being part of one related to ECFE and ABE through the Minnesota Education Association. So they do that a lot. I don't know if MDE ever does, but then they just pay, professionals can apply, and then they pay stipends, and you commit to meetings and things like that. It seems like a really great task force topic.
Sorry, I'm on my phone, but is Shelley Doran here?
Oh, yep, Shelley's here.
Yes, I'm here.
Shelley, talk about the group that, because that sounds a lot like the group that you're involved with.
Well, I think there's other people on here that are doing that too.
Oh,
Katie Smith.
okay.
Ellen,
Yeah.
you're on there. You've been going to that too?
Yeah, I've been to 2 of them, but I'm still not quite sure what the end product is going to
Yeah.
be. I'm a little
I
confused
agree.
by the
Same.
construction.
Yeah, I agree too. I don't even, I guess I don't even know how to explain it. She's meeting with, it sounds like she has got a grant, and correct me, Ellen, if I'm wrong, or anybody else who's been on any of those meetings, and she's just trying to get information. At least the last 2 meetings that I've been to, she's trying to get information about what we're doing in our programs, what's going well, what we need from MDE, whether it's financial, whether it's change in policy. I think she's just trying to get as much information as she can about our programs and how it's going.
Katie Smith.
our family-
Sarah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, if there's anybody who can move the needle, if there's anybody who can move the needle and say to MDE, hello, we're
Right.
here. ECFE needs a unified umbrella message.
Right.
Katie, she can get, maybe that's what this is about. Maybe this is just the beginning baby steps to really bringing our voices together and saying, hi.
Right.
Look at what we've done.
That's my hope, Ellen, but I think that what this is coming out of is very COVID specific. So
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah.
But
So maybe that's where it
that's
starts.
where any funding or whatever is happening is
Right.
with the immediate concerns of reaching families during COVID. So I'm really hoping it doesn't instantly dry up as soon as people are vaccinated and life is a little bit more back to normal.
What we could do is take that data and say, the data's still there.
Right.
Like it's still, things are still hard, but COVID just ripped open all these things, food insecurity, kids not having the support they need, parents being stressed beyond their limit. And I feel like, yes, once things go back to normal, Becca, I totally agree with you. But I think we can still say, hi, these issues are not going away just because the pandemic is winding down.
Well, and I think there are some programs, I mean, Sarah, I know in Edina it happened to you guys, but that aren't having programming and don't have any parent education, and these parents are floundering. There's some communities up north that she was asking for people to videotape parent ed lessons so that they could just send the videotapes up there. Videotape, it's probably not the right word anymore, right? But
that's what she's already started. Like
she's already done that.
Yeah, there's a place already now to see
Yep.
a certain amount of curriculum.
Yeah, that was one of the things that she's been working on, and it just came out in the last couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah.
I'll be available to say, hey, these things still haven't gone away, folks.
I noticed that there's a new, or there's going to be a new Secretary of Education, or whatever it's called in the state, Commissioner of Education. So the gal who did it from the beginning of Walls's time is returning to the classroom, or so the press release says. And so somebody else is in there. So, because that was my thing, was I remember having a meeting with Mike, actually, with the woman who was with Mark Dayton. And man, was it hard to reach her. I mean, she was lovely. And I as a human being, I liked her, and I think she was very down to earth, and she was not Betsy DeVos. And but it was just like, that position is so busy, right? And so distracted and everything, that kind of getting her ear. And because I've I always wonder about these administrators that come in and what their own knowledge of ECFE is, right? We had Melvin Carter, who at that point was Walls's or Dayton's, he was appointed head of the cabinet for children or whatever. And he came to an ECFE meeting and totally unprepared, you know, like did not really know. He thought, he kept using the word family engagement. I thought Betty Cook was gonna, like I had to peel Betty off the ceiling. Anyway, so I think educating and raising awareness for some of these folks really at the top that, you know, can be useful too.
So I don't know about all of you, but I would assume it's the same as my program. There's a huge backlog of early childhood special education assessments and referrals, right? And so in our program, what they started doing, they had been doing it in the past too, but it seems like they really kicked it up now, is that those families, as soon as they have contact with them, they are referred to ECFE. So they kind of tell them, this is your first stop right now. We really want you to get into ECFE. Somebody's going to give you a call and see, you know, where you might fit. Do you want home visits? Do you want a class? And so then we have somebody designated. We have a parent educator and an early childhood educator who take those referrals and make those calls. So if you haven't had that connection happen, that might be a good place as well for reaching, you know, all kinds of families that aren't in ECFE, but somehow ended up getting that referral from a doctor or something.
Okay, in this moment of silence, can I break in with a question that has nothing to do with any of this? Because of scheduling, I wasn't able to really be a part of this group for up until this semester, really. And I know, Susan, you mentioned a week or two ago that like the reason for the name Perfect Connections, and I'm like, I don't really understand that. I don't, can you fill me in on that, since I wasn't here at the beginning of the group?
I live my life in acronyms. Anyway, but it stands for parenting educators, right? Parenting educators are really, so it's okay, parenting, and we'll say and early educators, right, are really, so I'm putting this in caps, fabulous, right? PERF, really fabulous with, something really fabulous with, all right, electronic, no, PE, sorry, keep talking about, I'm getting there. PERF, electronic, and that's it, and communications technology. That was it. Yeah, parenting and early educators are really fabulous with electronic and communications technology. PERFECT. Okay, that's where it came from. Yeah.
I just did find the name interesting, since I so often am helping parents focus on not worrying about being perfect. and you know, we're striving for progress, not perfection, and all this. So I thank you for explaining it.
Yeah. Should we change it? Should we call ourselves something else? Because I agree with you. Like yeah. And if it gives you if you guys any anxiety, feeling like you need to be perfect to be part of, do you think that turns people off? That they think that?
I can't imagine it does. And I wasn't bringing this up as a what's wrong with this name. I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just organic.
So, so Susan, can I have one question that I mean, like, I have a question I need help. So I want to ask everyone, give me a suggestion of their favorite 2 parenting books they think is the best helpful to me, as a new parent educator. I would love to have that list.
Shoot. Hold it. We all have to go to Google and search our thing here.
The Big Book of Parenting Solutions? How have I not heard of that one? What? Sarah's gonna go
Here it
get
is.
it. Show and tell
Well,
time. Yeah.
as long as you bring it, I was just going to add the
Oh,
caveat
yeah.
that I really struggle with Michelle Borba, like in person, because I find her so manic. And I feel like I need to wear a spit guard, like pre-COVID spit guard. Like I went and heard her speak live once. I was like, oh my God, like she doesn't stop. And it's so percussive, like
But her book is
solid,
digestible.
solid.
Do we have yeah, the Siegel and Hartzell book on here? Parenting from the Inside Out. Is it in there already there? Parenting from the Inside Out. Yep, thank you.
Did you
Looks like
guys
we're getting
know
some
that-
show and tell. Get some
Yeah.
show and tell.
I'm just too lazy to type it in. Did you know that How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk has a little version now?
Oh,
Yeah, and it's for ages 2 to 7.
Yeah, I've done that one twice. I did it twice last year in 2 different
Yeah.
sessions. It was real. That's what I was just typing that one in, Ellen, when you said that.
It's a good one.
It is
Oh,
good.
and then the other Siegel book, No Drama Discipline.
Mhm.
It's a good one too.
usually all of these and did Greta leave us? Oh, Greta popped in. No, she's gone.
Also, you guys, Wendy Mogul. I don't know if any of you know Wendy Mogul.
Oh yeah. Yep.
She has her own podcast now.
Oh.
Yeah. The first time I ever heard her, she was on Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert. And yeah, I just found out that she has her own podcast and she actually sits down with parents and has conversations, and they are awesome. It's called Nurture versus Nurture is the name of her podcast. I just listened to one and I was just really boggled by everything she taught. That just the nuggets that I got out of there.
You know, I'm gonna like take this 3 minutes of our I'm gonna clip it and I'm gonna sell it online and advertise it as let's see, how many are here without me? So 12 of the nation's top parenting educators recommend their favorite parenting books to you. I'll be a millionaire in 5 minutes and I will give it all to Manafi and they can they can buy the ECFE.org domain.
Is that so expensive?
What, honey?
The domain, is the domain so expensive?
It's if you go to, so if you ever want to see if a domain is available or how much it costs to buy, go to, it's GoDaddy. I mean, you can do, there's tons of these places, but I use GoDaddy for my own websites. But anyway, but yeah, when I checked on GoDaddy, it was $3,500. that was like the starting. So you can broker through them, but otherwise there are all these other domains that are available.
I just got my first check, Susan, 350. I can donate this money.
Great. Just turn over your stimulus checks to Menafee. How are you guys finding, as we're talking about sort of ECFE and sort of this past year, you know, one of the benefits of ECFE that I also don't think gets, well, it's not promoted period, but it's also there, is the community connections and the community piece of community resources and being able to connect families with community resources. And how has that been in your programs this year with COVID and doing more things online? I mean, has it been about the same because those community resources are coordinated and it's just like, here's how we reach people, or I don't know, just how's that gone this year?
I think it's been a lot harder because we not only barely understand how our own program works in COVID, and then every place you want to refer them to is different. So that's been a challenge. Like I even think about child protection, and there was a certain county that you couldn't even get through on the child protection phone number, and they had to call you back because they were all working at home, and then it would be phone tag for a child protection report. Like, you know, so there were lots of examples like that where it's just really hard to connect with other people for a long time. And maybe it's getting a little bit better, but trying to understand how everybody's system works now with COVID.
We're in Dakota County, and they really still consolidate resources on their webpage. And I find even in like languages, and I find that to have been very helpful. They for lots of things, created a new section on their webpage, and so that was helpful. But I agree, it's been tough to reach people and connect with people and plan with people.
Like guest talks, like I know like in St. Paul, they'd always have people in from the family tree clinic, and you know, maybe the fire marshal or whoever would come in. Have the programs continued doing those sort of guest visits and connections?
No, and I'm gearing myself up for doing the parents and sexuality educators on my own without family tree for the first time. They're one of my favorite guest speakers every year. So no, we're kind of having to do a lot of those expert guest speaker bits on our own.
We had a public health came to our family literacy program, and so did our EL department, but we got them on Zoom, and we're fortunate that we have a way to project that in our rooms, and it worked out.
I think it just kind of depends on who it is. Like our county nurses are still coming to our programming. Well, I just have a nurse come to my baby class, but I know that the hospital stopped sending their lactation consultant to the newborn class in Faribault. They're like, nope, sorry, we're not sending her anymore. So I think it just really depends on who's in charge. And honestly, I think what they think is important.
Yeah, interesting. Good. Well, thank you. Just as a note, you usually put in the link to the drive where, so she and Greta at the end of last year stepped up to take our chat discussions and any resources that we shared in chat into notes for our future reference. So thank you, Yuji, for doing that. That's really wonderful for us.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so happy to do that.
So so she added that drive link, and it's up there, and the meeting notes go back to the beginning, back to May 8th. Ooh, how should we
Yeah,
celebrate?
Susan is the one putting the chat there every week. I have, I just sometimes feel, I feel like I do not want to push it too much.
Yeah, but you guys format them and call them to be, really useful. So, oh, and because this is recorded, I also should say that I'm sure Melvin Carter is now very knowledgeable about all early childhood programs in the state as the mayor of St. Paul. I don't know, he's been up to any of the programs, but in case his people are listening, I voted for you, Melvin. So. All right, so we're at 1. Does anybody have anything else to share or ask before we close for today?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you everyone so much for the list of the book. Oh, I'm so thrilled.
Okay, well, have a great week, everybody. And we'll see you back here next Friday. Bye.